So to me, the most interesting moment to come out of the Piers Morgan Nick Fuentes debate was there's a part during the debate when Piers Morgan asks Nick Fuentes if he's ever had sex, and Nick says no. And it just seems, for whatever reason, to be a really big deal to Piers. And for the remainder of the interview, he just periodically brings it up as like an ad hominem argument. Like they can be talking about something unrelated, and he just goes, "You need to get laid. That's why you hold that opinion." Or "You're a virgin," or "You're a loser," or something like that. And for whatever reason, it just seemed to really bother him. And it went beyond the normal, like, "I'm a Chad, you're a virgin." I was the cool guy back in high school. I was the captain of the football team. Nick's a nerd. I'm going to smash him into the um, lockers. His entire political ideology is just invented to create a system in which he should run society. It wasn't something like that. It seemed to me, at least watching it, that on like a deep personal moral level, that repulsed Piers Morgan. That he felt that Nick was a morally inferior person for not having had sex. And it's really weird, and he keeps bringing this up. Like, he did a post, "Are all Groypers sexually repressed virgins or just their spiritual leader? Not sure how this call works." Like, why is he bringing this up again? And then he said, "You really need to get laid, you deluded little twerp," in response to Nick saying something to him. And I think he said it in a couple other places. And just to me, I don't know, maybe I just don't spend that much time thinking about other males' sex life. And it seems kind of weird to me that you had a hostile or like a hostile debate, and you are just obsessing over the other dude's sexual habits. That just seems kind of weird to me. But I think there's something deeper than that, and I think there's something beyond that. So what is it? First and foremost, something I have noted over my life is people who have bad impulse control, who have who can't manage their appetites, who are addicts, are repulsed by people who don't have that issue and can keep their appetites in control. This is something I found just in my personal life, but I also just found this by reading things and from talking to other people. So what do I mean by this? So back in university, I didn't drink. And a lot of the people around me drunk, and they would drink until the point where they would just vomit, and they would like pass out in the streets, and just stuff like that. And the fact that I didn't drink, it wasn't just that they thought I was like a loser or I was boring or something. It seemed to personally offend them on a fundamental level, that I was like status signaling or that I was morally inferior to them as a human being because I didn't engage in that activity. And then they would try to pathologize it and try to come up with some reason that I was screwed up, or I actually did want to drink, I just didn't, all that kind of stuff. And I find that's very similar for any of these things, be it marijuana. People would get angry at me for not smoking weed. And just if you deal with people, and I know I used to be this way, like a couple decades ago, before I got treatment and therapy, I used to kind of resent people who could manage their diet and weren't overweight. And there's an aspect of me that just resented them and disliked them as a person. And you can see this with any kind of vice, be it gambling or sex or whatever. And the reason for that is because it implies the existence of a counterexample to you, the existence of someone who can control that specific appetite indicates that it's a you problem. That it's not that alcohol is impossible to resist. It's not that you can eat less. It's not that you can just not gamble. It's within your worldview, you have committed fully to the idea that this is just normal, that this is socially acceptable, that I can't do anything else. So getting back to that, how does this relate? I think because Piers Morgan is a coomer, and he's a guy who, to my understanding, he let his wife take a sabbatical from their marriage, and she posts stuff on Instagram about how she like fucks other dudes and stuff like that. And I don't know his sex life, and I don't really want to know it, but he clearly is a coomer of some description. And the idea that someone could not be a coomer, that could not richly humiliate themselves for little crumbs of sex from their wife, is something that bothers him on a fundamental level. Because it implies that, yeah, Piers, it's a you problem. You could just not. And he also got really angry when Nick started talking about like women not voting and stuff like that, and he went into full-blown feminist mode. I think you could also argue that, once again, that comes from a commitment to like his whole Coomer thing. And if he doesn't believe that strong women like can do whatever they want, once, and that as a man he shouldn't let his wife be doing that, that unravels his narrative, and it just makes him out to be a complete and total loser. So on one level, it's a symbol that he has to face that he just doesn't have self-control, and his life decisions led him to where he is now. And the fact that he saw someone who made different life choices implied he could have done otherwise. And there's a sense of shame and helplessness and desire to lash out over that. There's that aspect of it. Once again, there's also the whole sunk cost fallacy, wherein it seems to me, at least, just from watching the interview and his posts, that as a man, he defines his self-worth in terms of being a human as like how many women you've had sex with. That at least seems to be, for me, like, your worth as an individual is objectively less if you haven't had premarital sex with a bunch of women. And I guess he's just committed to this, and he's been committed to this for his entire life, and he's lived his life this way, and those are the values he has. And if somebody comes along who doesn't adhere to that value set, and it implies that, once again, there's a way to do something otherwise, I think it causes something of an existential crisis, because he's looking at someone who doesn't need like sex with women to validate themselves. And the knowledge that that's the case makes him realize that he's a simp who's in an open marriage. And if he were to entertain the idea that he didn't have to, I don't know, organize his worldview based around being a coomer, then all the bad decisions he's made, he has to take accountability for, and he has to rethink his life. I think that's the other part of it. And that's kind of the attitude I feel a lot of baby boomers have, is they have invested so deeply into these narratives, these ways of looking at society, that to any extent going back on them or considering that they might be wrong would make them realize that they've spent their life advocating for something. But before getting into the politics, it's very much I grew up during the whatever the boomer era was. It was all free love and drugs and sex, and we struck down abortion, and we want immigration, and just kind of all this stuff, and we're just invested in this postmodern YOLO. We only live in the here and now. All that really matters is appearing to be virtuous to others and stimulating your pleasure centers until it eventually break, and then you have to just do more extreme stuff or just take drugs. And I think it's true for boomers for a lot of these things. Like, if they were to admit that multiculturalism failed, that unlimited third world immigration was a bad idea, that encouraging people to not get married and start families, to putting all of their assets into their house and continually pumping the value up to make housing unaffordable and make it extremely difficult for young people to start families. that their abandonment of religion and traditional religious norms didn't lead to this big orgy of free love. It led to Me Too and BLM and the United Kingdom, where you get arrested for having a screwdriver in your car. If they were to admit any of these things actually turned out the way they did, they would have to admit a large portion of their lives was a lie, and that it obviously was a lie, and that somebody who's less than half their age is calling them out on it. And their pride and their like the sunk cost fallacy won't allow that. The thinking is, okay, well, I'm going to die in like 20 years anyways. Well, it depends how long the life support keeps them alive. So maybe Piers Morgan at 60 is going to die in 70 years because they'll hook him up to machines and he'll become like a Terminator or something. But he just views it as being too late to go back. Now, me personally, and I've said this many times, I'm a Christian. I think it's never too late to repent. I always use the scene from Return of the Jedi where Vader in his last moments repents, and he's able to achieve salvation despite a lifetime of evil deeds. And this is very much in the Bible, where the good thief, despite whatever crimes he committed, realizes that, yeah, I was a scumbag, I committed crimes, but you shouldn't be attacking this guy who did nothing wrong. And he puts his faith in Christ and repents, and he is saved at literally the last possible second of his life. So to me, I just don't really view that as an excuse. It's just sometimes in life you have to take the L and move on. I remember there's something that Ashton said once that really stuck with me. If you get felted, you just repent and try to do better. Don't take the Felted Express to Copesville. Now I know I'm going all over the place with this, but hopefully you get what I mean. The point is, like, just admit you were wrong. Admit you were wrong and move on. But he can't do that out of pride. So he has to post shit like, oh, I'm okay that my people are getting wiped out and replaced so I can have curry, because that is the lifestyle he's committed to. And as it becomes more and more obvious that the whole thing was a really bad idea and didn't achieve what he wanted it to, they have to just keep grasping at straws. Now, the second part of this is I just kind of want to talk about the fundamental, like, principle here. So Piers Morgan's argument is your moral worth as a man. Now, something I find kind of funny is, for whatever reason, people on the left are, I find, more homophobic than people on the right. Like, whenever they think someone might be gay, they just go completely insane. People keep calling Nick gay. I thought within their worldview that wasn't a bad thing, but I guess it is. And even outside of, you could argue, oh, they're calling him on his hypocrisy. I find a lot of them will immediately go to homosexual insults if they're dealing with somebody on their side. But anyways, how pathetic is that? To define the self-worth of an individual based on how, like, you need to get laid in order to have, like, worth, is just really pathetic to me. Like, it's not even get married or have kids or find God or have meaningful connections to other people or leave a legacy. It's just the most crude, like, base level. Unless you rut with a woman in, like, a back alley, some, like, crack whore, then your life has no purpose. And it's just the most nihilistic, sad way of looking at the world. And once again, if you go back to the fact that the guy is an open cuckold, and that having that, like, whatever bits of pussy from his wife is worth more to him than any sense of self-respect. And he calls himself a Catholic, but he attacks someone for not having premarital sex, for not fornicating. The cope I've seen is that that's a medieval concept and the church doesn't teach that anymore, or I don't even know, but it's like, well, Piers, you don't need to call yourself a Catholic. If you don't believe in anything the church teaches, like that's fine. You can just go somewhere else. Just the the like fake using it as a cudgel and saying, "Oh, my racism, how would the church feel about that?" And obviously, you can say having sex with attractive women is a traditionally masculine thing to do. And like, I get that. I get the whole, oh, he's a king argument or whatever. I don't know. I just find it really gross and very crude and something a 60-year-old man shouldn't be saying. Say what you will about Tucker, and people will call Tucker a simp or whatever, but he's in a loving marriage and he has children and he seems very happily married. His wife isn't on like OnlyFans or Ashley Madison or whatever it is screwing the pool boy. And once again, this comes to this non sequitur that I always find really irritating, and it's like one of the lamest gotchas ever. It's like, well, you're not married and have children, so why are you advocating this for other people? And it's like, okay, well, I'm overweight, and I think it's bad to be overweight. So like that doesn't make me a hypocrite. I'm not living up to what I think I should be doing. Like it's such a, like, I don't know if it's a room temperature IQ or it's a 105 or 110 IQ thing, but it's not hypocritical if you hold yourself to the same standard and just say you're not reaching it. Like, and I don't know what Nick's opinion on this, and it doesn't really matter because I think regardless of what somebody said, like if he were to say, well, you support the traditional family and you think men should get married and have kids, but you're not married, I'm like, yeah, I probably should be. I mean, like, what do you want me to say? Like, I don't really get how that's hypocritical on my spot. Is I think something is objectively better for society, socially, spiritually, and just in terms of basic human dignity. I don't really get how me not doing that somehow means my opinion is incorrect. And let's say even if I came up with some sort of explanation, like some cope or some thing to exclude myself from my own standard, that would have no impact on whether or not that's the proper way to run a society. I could come up with something that I'm like the philosopher king or I'm the priestly caste or some evolatism stuff, but that doesn't change the fact that I truly believe that a married family raising children is the only real way to run a successful society, and that it's something that a conclusion that most successful, or I think to my knowledge all successful civilizations come to. And the fact that I'm not doing that myself in no way affects the truth claim that I'm making there. And it's just the fact that he has to resort to this and he has to obsess over a guy less than half his age, his sex life. It's just really pathetic. It's really gross. It's just crude and crass. And I get that he's Piers Morgan. I get that it's uncensored. But he said the audience can judge for themselves, and I think it's sleazy. I think it's pathetic. I think, frankly, it's kind of creepy. It's creepy and weird. And I think it's just a sign, a very clear sign of a lot of the boomer mentality that they're getting called out by young people who made different life choices than what they made, and they can't handle it because people not having tons of premarital sex indicates to them that they didn't have to do it, and the knowledge that that was possible just completely and totally shuts them down. So those are my thoughts on the matter. I hope you found that interesting. God bless everybody, and I'll talk to you again real soon.